April 2025, Bangalore is staring at another water scarcity problem.
Critical groundwater shortages across Bengaluru.
ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರಿಗಾಗಿ ಹಾಹಾಕಾರ.
बेंगलुरु का पानी खत्म हो चुका है.
India's Bengaluru city, known as the country's Silicon Valley, is now facing an unprecedented water crisis.
Do you think 2025 is a repeat of 2024?
The entire city is not struggling, pockets are struggling, and those who are struggling very badly. There's enough and more water for everybody.
Okay.
The question is, it's not reaching everybody.
I want to understand what exactly is tanker mafia.
The market is coming in where there's a state failure. The reason why tankers exist is because the government is not able to give pipe water to the house or to that apartment.
Do you think that the population of Bangalore is the problem?
The average citizen of Bangalore is only obsessed with his or her water and his or her lake at the most. In the years of average rain and surplus, no problem. In the year of distress rain, problems will be there.
If water scarcity is not the problem, but at a broader level, what is the problem that is plaguing Bangalore?
We are not paying the true price for water.
कितना पैसा चाहिए बैंगलोर का ये प्रॉब्लम सॉर्ट करने के?
10,000 crore.
और उससे सिर्फ बैंगलोर का फायदा नहीं होगा?
Roughly about 64,000 farmers will benefit. 1.1 million acres will come into cultivation. And we need to worry about the farmer in Kolar and Chikballapur on whose produce we depend for food and vegetables.
But मैं तो एज अ सिटीजन एक्सपेक्ट करता हूँ कि ये तो यार they have to figure it out.
Right now we are fighting about the waters of the river. How do we make sure that the river has clean water, that the river flows continuously? How do we make sure that the water of the river is clean? उसके ऊपर तो झगड़ा नहीं होता है.
तो सोल्यूशन है नहीं. Let's start with 2025. There is a before coming here, I read an article on Times which says April 2025, Bangalore is staring at another water scarcity problem. We did the same kind of talks in 2024. So before we go into the history of everything or what's happening, let's start from where we are today. Do you think 2025 is a repeat of 2024, or have we made some progress and things are moving in the right direction when it comes to Bangalore?
We made substantial progress from 2024. We're going to bring in an additional 775 million liters per day of Cauvery fifth stage water. So the crisis is not likely to be as severe as 2024. It will be only in pockets of Bangalore where the Cauvery network has not reached.
But otherwise, you see this year as not as severe as 2024.
We are lucky because we have our dams full. It was not the case last year. So the dams have enough water for it to last till the next monsoon. And like I said, the Cauvery fifth phase has kicked in. Plus, certain amount of our lakes are now being filled with treated wastewater, which is going to do good things for the groundwater. So the crisis will be very much less as compared to 2024.
Okay. And there's one thing again in 2024 which is talked about a lot was tanker mafia.
Yeah.
I want to understand what exactly is tanker mafia, and has that been taken care of, or it's still the same thing that is.
So mafia is a word which we use very loosely and very easily these days. What happens is that tankers step in when the Cauvery water does not reach the people and when borewells in the apartments or houses go dry, right? So tankers are a service provider essentially. They tend to become a natural monopoly in certain areas because that's how the market works.
But that's all private. These are all private players.
All tankers are private because the BWSSB itself has very limited number of tankers to supply water.
And where do the tankers get their money?
They get all their water from deep borewells, and these borewells are outside the city boundary generally, and they're generally located next to lakes or rivers which are flowing with water.
So these are licensed tankers.
Unfortunately, we don't have a system of licensing for water tankers. So they have license as from the Transport Authority, and they have certifications for being on the road, but to supply water, you don't really need a license.
Okay, so tomorrow I can start a tanker company.
It would be very successful if you were smart about it.
Okay, so what's the issue with this whole system? Should the government own all the tankers being supplied because it has to take care of its citizens, or is it okay to have a private entity here and which charges enormous amounts when the summer comes?
So here's the thing. The reason why tankers exist is because the government is not able to give pipe water to the house or to that apartment.
Okay.
If the government were to give that, there would be no borewells, there would be no water filters, there would be no sump tanks, there would be no water tanks, there would be no tankers. So the market is coming in where there's a state failure. Now, why is there a state failure? We'll discuss it at depth, right? But So it's clearly a response to a need of society which is not being served by the government systems and where their own individual borers are not serving them. So you have to see it in that light. And now if you want to take care of the tanker, you have to look at it from a competitions commission perspective, not a water perspective. You have to make sure that there is competition between the tankers so that the price stay down. Now, for that, you don't need water expertise. You need market expertise. And we're throwing the wrong expertise at tanker management.
You're saying there is not enough competition, there is monopolization of how the tankers operate in Bangalore?
It's a natural monopoly which occurs there. But let's say if the state were to compete with the tankers and introduce 600 or 700 tankers of their own with cheaper water, then automatically the prices of the tankers would go down.
Is it too big a thing for a government to introduce 700 tankers? Like, looks a very...
It's not, but because you think of regulating tankers, you call them a mafia, and you think that the only business of the game is to make sure that the prices of the tankers are low. Therefore, you don't think of naturally stepping in from a competitive perspective. Suppose you give more licenses to tankers. You give the tankers water yourself for them to distribute it. The prices will go down. There will be no cartelization. There will be no mafia.
What percentage of... Can you talk about supply demand of Bangalore? What percentage of Bangalore is served through tankers or served through Cauvery? When you go for a... when you take a house in Bangalore, like Cauvery water, borewell water, ऐसे पूछते हैं.
So here's the thing. We haven't had a census in any of our towns or cities since 2001. So we're extrapolating populations. Let's assume that the population of Bangalore is 14.5 million, which is the roughest guess, which is the Bangalore metropolitan area. We're not talking of areas outside the metropolitan area, right? Now, the BWSSB supplies 1,475 million liters per day.
Okay.
It's now supplemented it with another 300 million liters per day. That's 1,775 MLD, right? Currently. Another 475 MLD will also kick in.
That's supply.
As supply from the Cauvery itself. In addition, groundwater estimates suggest that there is 800 million liters being pumped from groundwater. Let's assume that in summertime it comes down to 600 million liters per day. Now, broadly, what you have is about 2,375 million liters per day being currently supplied. 14.5 million population. There's enough and more water for everybody.
Okay.
The question is, it's not reaching everybody. So the connections that the BWSSB has is roughly 1.1 million connections. Let's say per connection, again, it's a guesstimate, which is the best guesstimate. About 10 people are served per connection because you have 2 houses normally everywhere. You have more than that. So again, 1.1 into 10, 11 million people are getting Cauvery water. For them, that's not a problem. It's the 3.5 million people who are not getting the connection, who are completely dependent on borewells or tanker water, who have a problem. The BWSSB is trying to extend the number of connections through the Cauvery fifth phase, and if that drive succeeds, the number of people dependent on tankers and borewells will reduce.
So now we have the Cauvery phase 5.
Right.
Which means that the supply is more.
Yes.
Than what it was last year.
Yes.
So you're saying that only some pockets of Bangalore have the problem.
So it's not a resource issue, it's a distribution issue.
Okay.
So if you get the distribution right, if we ideally get universal connection, that is every household and every apartment in Bangalore connected to the Cauvery, then we don't have a water scarcity. Some water for all, not all water for some. If we do that, we have enough and more water to give everybody 100 liters per capita per day, which is more than sufficient for the population of Bangalore.
What are these pockets of Bangalore which are suffering? Is there any?
Generally, it's the periphery of the city because the network takes time in expanding. So it's 110 villages which were incorporated into Bangalore many years back, including some 7 CMCs and 1 TMC, City Municipal Councils and 1 TMC, which were incorporated in Bangalore. It's these periphery of the city which don't have access to the Cauvery network.
So it just seems like it's not a big problem at all. Why is it that there is such a hue and cry every year when you know?
So we're in the era of social media. We're in the era of everybody having a loudspeaker or a microphone.
But do you agree it's not that big a problem? Bangalore is not that big a water crisis.
It's doing injustice to the people who have problem to say there's no problem.
Okay.
But it's also doing injustice to the city if you build a narrative that the entire city is struggling. The entire city is not struggling. Pockets are struggling. And those who are struggling very badly.
The elite class is absolutely not affected at all, right?
The elite class in the periphery are affected. Even the middle class and the lower, the villas and the large apartments, the 1,500, 2,000 apartments, which have a bulk demand for water, they are affected in the periphery. But in the heart of the city and in the older pockets of the city, there's no water scarcity. So let me push this point a bit further. If we don't identify the problem correctly, the solutions will be wrong.
Yeah, so one of the things that keeps making the rounds last year also is that for these 2 months, we should reduce the population of Bangalore. I'm not talking about the North Indians coming here and whatever, but there was definitely, there was so much. Now you're saying it's social media, probably it's a loudspeaker argument. But do you think that the population of Bangalore is the problem? And if you reduce it a little bit, the problem gets easier?
The current water system and the water as a resource which is available with us, if we plan correctly, we can support a population of 50 million people. It doesn't endear me to the people of Bangalore or Karnataka, but there's enough resource for 50 million people.
Okay.
It's a question of setting our goals right. It's a question of making our investments right. If we do that correctly, there is no water scarcity. There's a governance and an imagination scarcity.
Okay, let's come to the problems then. If water scarcity is not the problem, but at a broader level, what is the problem that is plaguing Bangalore?
So at the heart of it is finances. That's my argument.
Okay.
We are not paying the true price for water. And therefore, the institution mandated to give us water is broke. It's in the red. It does not have monies to keep the system functioning well. It does not have money to expand the infrastructure quickly enough. It has to wait for grants from Japanese International Cooperative Bank, Asian Development Bank, World Bank for it to be able to do capital investments. And the reason for it is that water is hugely subsidized.
What is the meaning of true cost of water?
So the true cost of water is when you return it back to nature at the same quantity and quality at which you appropriated it. If I take 100 liters from the Cauvery, I use it. Luckily for us in cities, we don't consume it. We have a bath, we wash the dishes, we flush the loo, the water comes back as used water into the system, right? It's in a different form, it needs to be clean. We have the technologies to pick the water, convey it to a sewage treatment plant, clean it to drinking water standards. Suppose we do that, and then we return it back to the Cauvery at the same spot from where we took it.
Treated water.
Treated to the same quality at which we took it from the Cauvery. We can do that. Then that's the ecological price for water. And
So what does that come to?
95 rupees a kiloliter, 95 rupees a 1,000 liters.
What do we pay now?
As a domestic consumer, I pay 7 rupees a kiloliter for the first slab, 11 rupees a kiloliter for the second slab. Apartments pay 22 rupees a kiloliter. An individual domestic house which takes 20,000 liters of water gets a subsidy of 1,650 rupees a month. A month.
So water is subsidized because of vote bank.
Because not a vote bank, it's a negative dividend of democracy. There is no political appetite to charge the true price for water.
I come from Punjab, and free electricity to farmers has become a major...
No, so again, I would differentiate between the human right to water. Everybody needs access to a basic minimum quantity of water free. What is that amount that should be free? I would argue that it should be 50 liters per capita per day, 50 liters per person per day.
But that water should be drinkable water, no?
It should be potable water.
Yeah.
Ideally, water should be available on tap 24/7, potable water.
Yeah.
If I open the tap, it's not because of my overhead tank or some tank that I should get water. It should be pressurized water from the system. And water should be potable. We can do it if we do the investments right. If we get the true price for water, we can get everybody a household connection. Nobody would need an RO system in their home. Nobody would need a filter in their home. Nobody would need some tanks and machines to pump it up to the overhead tank. You wouldn't need it.
Is there a city in India which has top tap water quality as drinking water?
Puri and Bhubaneswar have just completed what they call drink from tap. They are smaller cities in town, but they are the first cities which are doing it. Pockets of Hubli, Dharwad, Belgaum and Gulbarga in Karnataka did it first. They got 24/7 water supply where water is pressurized and they can drink from tap.
It's happening.
It's happened. It's happened since 15 years back in Hubli, Dharwad, Belgaum and Gulbarga. The price that households pay has reduced from what they were paying before. They pay about 105 to 110 rupees a month. It's really something which beats me that we are not able to broadcast that and get those systems in place. If I go to Helsinki where my son stays, there are signboards on taps everywhere in railway stations, airports say, please drink from here. You don't need
Takes a couple of days to understand and get used to it, right?
Well, you actually drink from the loo there. So therefore, you don't have to have bottled water at all. Imagine the kind of plastic pollution that's being layered on us and the earth because of it. So it's possible. It's just a question of getting the investments right and the prices right.
Yeah. No, when I go to London, it takes a couple of days for me to get used to the fact that if I'm traveling anywhere, you can just go to the loo and drink. Right?
Absolutely.
You can put water from there into that heater and then heat it. And
So the only difference is that there are certain sections of the population in India which would be in informal settlements or slum settlements where there would be a bit of a difficulty in getting the pipelines to their homes.
which is okay, which is a work in
But you
progress.
can still get it. So you can get community taps there. They could be pressurized. It could be metered. That's mandatory. And you should have volumetric pricing. And if you get that done, there is no water scarcity.
How bad is Bangalore's tap water? Like
Tap
on
water?
a scale of how do you measure? TDS?
No, well, I'll tell you what the BWSSB does is in most pockets, you could actually drink the BWSSB water without any problem at all.
Oh, okay.
Because they are chlorinating the water, there's residual chlorination. The challenge is this, that they supply twice or 3 times a week, and then we store it in the sun. And there where secondary contamination can occur or in our ore tanks. So therefore, we are suspicious and we put a filter. But if when the BWSSB water comes in the tap, you can drink it safely. The thing is that in 4 of the sewage treatment plants in Bangalore, you can drink the treated wastewater from the STP.
You have to tell all the viewers what is an STP and what is happening, and the output of STP is how good.
So an STP is a place which treats all the used water which comes from our homes. So what we have in our cities are sewerage networks. You have a bath, you wash the dishes, the water is collected, it goes through the sewerage network and ends up in the sewage treatment plant, right?
Okay.
And then the sewage treatment plant has to treat this water. There are basically 3 forms of filtering. Primary is just a grill which separates all the solids. And then there's a sedimentation which allows all the solids to settle down, which is taken out. And then there is a process of anaerobic and aerobic impact on the water, which takes care of the nitrogen in the water, which does that. Then you pump in a lot of oxygen so that the bacteria chomp on the organic material. You have then a clarification process where you settle down again the solids. Then you can do something called an ultrafiltration,
Okay.
which is the step lower than RO. Once you do that ultrafiltration, the water that comes out, you can check for what's called BIS 10500 standards, drinking water standards. Now, actually, for an STP water, you just have to check for 8 parameters, which are basic parameters, BOD, COD. These are terminologies which are used by biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. And the idea is that it should be fit for release into a lake or a water body, right? But if you do that ultrafiltration, it's potable water. The only thing that prevents us is the yuck factor. We're psychologically not attuned to.
Apart from that psychological factor, there's nothing stopping us from.
So you can do an intermediation for that. Yeah, there's nothing stopping us from drinking the water straight away and using it for consumption too. But it can definitely be used for non-potable purposes like washing a car or flushing the toilet or watering your garden, right? It can completely be used for that, which is a substantive portion of the water. The water that we drinking and cooking, is 2 liters for drinking per day, 3 liters maximum in hot summertime, and maybe about 6 to 7 liters for cooking purposes. That's if you're making dal and curry. तो 10 लीटर का ही खाली चाहिए हमको पोर्टेबल वाटर बाकी सब can be of a slightly lower standard.
How many STPs do we have as an infra in Bangalore? That's number 1.
Right.
Number 2, why don't we have STPs everywhere in the sense?
So it's again a question of monies, right? So what we have now is about 34 STPs which are functioning, and by the end of this year or perhaps the end or the middle of next year, we will have 61 STPs run by the BWSSB, the Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage.
By the end of next year?
By the middle of next year, if all monies go and if projects go on time, by the middle of next year. We're
So it will be
STPs.
almost double.
And the capacity for treatment will be 1,900 million liters or even more than that, which means all the sewage being generated in Bangalore will be capable of being treated in these STPs. In addition, we have more than 3,000 decentralized sewage treatment plants in apartments, gated communities, and institutional buildings, which makes it the single largest number of STPs for any city in India, which we have. So we have the treatment capacity for that. Our big challenge is that the network is not robust enough to collect all the sewage and take it to the STP. So we need to make our investment there. And then imagine what can happen. Suppose we collect all the sewage correctly and perfectly in the sewage network, take it to the STPs. All our streams, lakes will become clean. Groundwater will become clean.
Where does the STP outlet go? Sorry.
So Bangalore is running a fantastic experiment, second only to Mexico City, where all this treated wastewater is being used to fill the lakes of Kolar, Chikballapur, Anikal, surrounding dry, drought-prone districts. And at the end of the day, when all the projects are implemented, 1,000 lakes will be filled with the treated wastewater of Bangalore, making the entire hinterland water secure.
And agriculture can thrive.
This water which reaches the lake then infiltrates into the ground, fills the wells, fills the bore wells, and farmers have water security.
Today, those bore wells and lakes don't exist?
They are dry because 7 out of 10 years are drought years in Kolar and Chikballapur. So already about 400 lakes are being filled, and surrounding those lakes, groundwater table is very robust and good. We have to improve the quality of treatment make sure that there's no secondary contamination of the lakes. In turn, 1,000 lakes will be filled. And if you take Bangalore's 186 lakes, 1,200 lakes will be filled with the treated wastewater of Bangalore.
So you're saying that whatever Bangalore is taking,
Yeah.
if Bangalore gives it all back,
It not only gives it all back, it adds to that, because what it does, it takes 2,275 million liters from the Cauvery, which it will after the end of the fifth phase. It adds 800 million liters from groundwater. That becomes 3,075 million liters per day. So it actually is a water and fertilizer factory. It's not a net consumer of water, it's a net producer of water. Not only water, but also fertilizer, nutrients, because what we eat comes out as excretion. That has NPK and all the micronutrients that plants need for their growth. All that is available in those waters for the farmers to reduce their fertilizer consumption by up to 50% and then come back as food to the city. So the loop is complete.
so why are we not doing this in every city of India? I'm just saying, it just seems so
get
good
you.
to be true.
So that's the thing now, we're all dream sellers, right? But when we do good things, we don't have the ability to communicate it. Unfortunately, what's happening now in Bangalore is that the sewage is being treated by the Bangalore Water Supply Storage Board. The pumping of the water to the lakes of Kolar is being done by the minor irrigation department, right? We would treat it as a lift irrigation project. When it ends up in the lakes of Kolar, it becomes the Gram Panchayat or Zilla Panchayat's property in many cases. In some cases, the MID. When it becomes groundwater, it's nobody's property. And the farmer, when he draws it, it's every farmer's property. So there's no institution imagining the entire water cycle from the Cauvery to the farmer's field and back as food to us, right? So in the absence of that institutional oversight, which looks at all this picture, there's nobody to tell that story and nobody to sell that story so that we all can feel confident that we will never have a water shortage and the farmers can feel confident that they don't have a water shortage. We don't have the institutional setup.
But sir, you know it. Okay, this experiment is also carried out by the state authorities, or it's a
Correct.
private, right?
So because of the fragmented responsibility of institutions, it's carried out by the minor irrigation department of the government of Karnataka, right? But they're not selling this, they're not telling
But the state governments oversell what they even don't do. If they're doing this, they should be selling. I mean, okay, why?
Yeah, it surprises me. Let me tell you that. Because I don't know who has to tell.
Sir, highway बनाते हैं तो
हाँ.
वो करते हैं और जबकि काम है highway बनाना,
हाँ.
right? It's like you're being, you're saying, मेरा जो काम था, मैंने वो काम कर दिया, so now vote me back or just pat me on the back. So, but if you're doing projects like this,
Correct.
you're saying this is not done in India till date.
At this scale, no.
If this becomes a reality,
Yeah.
Then Bangalore can add 2x more the population. It actually doesn't mean anything in
There's
terms
less
of
of
water
scarcity.
problems,
हाँ,
right?
हाँ.
ठीक है, traffic अलग है, but
हाँ, traffic garbage अलग है.
हाँ.
But in terms of water, there's no resource scarcity.
And this, you're saying, has happened only in the world, in Mexico.
Mexico City is doing it at same scale. They take all their treated wastewater and use it for agriculture. Bangalore is the second largest.
जो groundwater होता है, sir, I can just drill something and keep extracting, no holes barred, no regulations.
So groundwater is very limited because we're sitting on hard rock. Bangalore has the oldest rocks in the world. The Lalbagh rock is 3,600 million years old. जो आप लालबाग जाओगे देखोगे पत्थर को, तो वो जो पत्थर है geologically, that's what's risen up to 900 meters and gives us the weather that we claim so proudly. But that also means that there's only a small weathered zone above the rock which holds the groundwater, right? The rest of the borewell water is in the cracks and fissures in this hard rock. So it's a very limited quantity.
Okay.
And only a limited quantity infiltrates and goes into this groundwater.
If I have an independent house,
Mm.
can I just get groundwater? Can I
So
drill motor
in
on?
theory, legally you need permission.
Mhm.
But it's easier to get forgiveness than permission because nobody will prevent you. See, it's also your right to life. If the city is not giving me water, what should I do to my right to life, right? It can't prevent me from accessing it. So therefore, I have to apply and drill a borewell and use it. But we need much better aquifer management, groundwater management, and borewell management in the city. There's no doubt about it.
Talk to me about the regulations. Is having STP mandatory in Bangalore?
So
is it
for-
being done? And so I live in an apartment. There is an STP. If we don't run it properly, am I being penalized? What's happening?
Yeah, so if you have a set of apartments which is more than 50, it used to be 50, but now it says that about 120,000 liters of water of sewage a day, if you're producing more than that, you have to have your own STP.
Okay.
That's why there are more than 3,000 STPs in apartments and other communities. If you don't do it, you will be penalized. If your STP doesn't run well, in theory, the Pollution Control Board should fine you for that.
So are all apartments self-sufficient in that respect? They take water and then
Unfortunately, what happens is that the builder sees it as an
Selling.
expenditure, right?
Okay.
And sometimes the right technology is not chosen or the right sizing of the STP is not chosen. So therefore, it may not run properly. But those who have done a careful and diligent job of selecting the right design for the STP, they get excellent results from it and they can reuse the water. Actually, we have a surplus of treated wastewater in many apartments. They don't know what to do with it. So what the BWSSB is now proposing is from the larger apartments, they're putting pipelines and taking the treated wastewater to the lakes to fill them.
which is great.
Which
It needs a network of collection, right?
हाँ, network se zyada, it just needs one pipe, the nearest lake, whichever is closest to you, and then officially carrying the water regularly in a pipe instead of leaving it into a storm drain and then it finds its way to the lake, but then it picks up a lot of pollutant. Here, the pipe will take it directly to the lake. And the lake itself can be designed with a wetland in the beginning, which will further clean the water before it gets to the water body.
But where are all the lakes of Bangalore?
तो जितने बचे हैं 186 बचे हैं जिसमें पानी है. हमारे पास बहुत सारे.
We have 186.
We have 186
In
full
Bangalore?
functional lakes in the BBMP area alone. But more critical than the 186 lakes of Bangalore are the lakes in the periphery of the city, which are just outside the jurisdiction of BBMP. There are more than 1,000 lakes there.
So how many were there in Bangalore?
अब लोग बताते हैं 262 थे 1964 में जो छोटा BBMP का एरिया था 262 were there. They say that this was the land of 1,000 lakes. So there were perhaps
City of
1,000
lakes.
1,000 lakes, yeah.
And a lot of construction is being done on these lakes. And
हाँ.
tell me what's happening. Like, how do I get a permission to just build an apartment on a wetland or a lake?
So, in theory, the land of the lake is with the revenue department. It's not defined as a water body which has protection, special protection, right? So, it's a survey number. And so, therefore, when it's dry or when it's full of polluted water, let's say when sewage fills it, even the local community would say, Ki, this is a nuisance, please fill it up. In the 1970s, there was an anti-malaria drive because malaria was rampant. And many of the tanks, these are all artificial bodies and they're not natural lakes. They're all created by human beings. Many of the tanks were filled as an anti-malaria measure because we didn't realize what the lakes were. It's only now in the late part of the 20th century and early part of 21st century, we realized the ecological value of water body and we are trying our best to protect it. This is a human condition. We don't have to cry about it. The Thames in London, Stockholm water body, all of them were filthy and polluted. They only got their act together in the late 60s, 70s and cleaned it up. We are on a growing curve with our GDP. When we reach a reasonable, the $5 trillion or the $10 trillion economy, then we'll have the surpluses to be able to invest to clean up our pollution.
But do you think that's going to happen in India? Because the variance of GDP, say in Bangalore versus any other city and all of that is, and the population that you're looking at, is there a benchmark in the world or theoretically ki iske baad we will start working on this?
So there's something called the Kuznets curve. Kuznets was a Nobel Prize winning economist who postulated a curve and he had a number. I don't recall the number. I think it was somewhere close to $20,000 if I'm right. But that's a Kuznets environmental curve. Be that as it be. Let's look at Bangalore itself, right? The GDP of Bangalore is substantially higher than because of the urban area. And it doesn't take much to devote a certain percentage of the GDP to keep our water systems going. It's our inability to do the tapping in. It's our inability to price water correctly. And it's our inability to make the right institutional investment framework, which is preventing us. Otherwise, all our lakes, all our wells, all our rivers should and can be clean.
It's a priority problem because Bangalore doesn't vote, right? In the sense, Bangalore is not a very, very vote-heavy population. It's a lot of non-locals.
So one is baffled, right? For traffic and for private car movement, we are ready to invest 20,000 crores, 38,000 crores.
कहाँ जा रहा है वो अलग बात है.
वो टनल बनाने में लगा रहे हैं 38,000 crores में तो आप इसको वेनिस बना सकते हैं. All the lakes can be interconnected. All the Raj Kalways could be. All the
priority problem.
Yes.
Or the citizens need to come up with a civil disobedience movement and say we want this, and then they'll be forced to do it.
Citizens seem to be favoring their cars over their water supply in terms. But you're right. I think we need a lot more.
No, I'm saying that हम लोग थोड़ी धरने पे बैठ रहे हैं सर. हम अपना काम करने जाते हैं, वापस आ जाते हैं, सोशल मीडिया पे, ट्विटर पे थोड़ा कंप्लेन कर देते हैं. I'm just saying that we don't take it in our own hands.
Correct. We don't
just-
push the right solution. See, what's happened with the narrative and the discourse is it's being posited as a water scarcity problem.
Yeah.
It's not a water scarcity problem. It's a financial scarcity problem.
Hmm.
Now, if we protest and say that this lake is polluted, let's say Bengaluru, we as citizens have protested and say कि या इसको साफ करो. But we haven't said where the money for it has to come from.
Hmm.
We don't stand on the street saying, I will pay the true price for water. Now you clean it up, right? तुम करो, तुम्हारे पैसे से करो, कहाँ से आने वाला है पैसा?
But मैं तो एज अ सिटीजन एक्सपेक्ट करता हूँ ना कि ये तो यार दे हैव टू फिगर इट आउट लाइक.
हाँ सही में, लेकिन वो नेगेटिव डिविडेंड ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी है कि कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के पास ये अपिटाइट नहीं है कि प्राइसेस बढ़ाए.
Let me put you on a spot. Which government was better in this department?
None. There's a competitive populism which all parties
What
want to
is
see.
competitive populism? The measures keep going up and up.
हाँ नहीं, आपको 5,000 में दूंगा, अगला बोलता है कि 7,000 में दूंगा. So this start.
Hmm.
And there is so you need to treat water as a human right, and you must make sure that it comes to every home, right? Har ghar nal se jal is brilliant, but water also is an economic good.
Hmm.
Beyond it being a social good and a human right, it becomes an economic good at a particular point of time. You can't have cheap water washing your cars or washing your pavements, right?
Hmm.
Or filling your swimming pool. You need to pay for it. And पता नहीं क्यों हमारा जो 5 साल वाला डेमोक्रेसी, और 5 साल भी नहीं, क्योंकि एक इलेक्शन कॉर्पोरेशन का आता है, एक इलेक्शन जिला पंचायत का आता है, एक इलेक्शन स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का, एक नेशनल गवर्नमेंट का, तो किसी भी वक्त हम तैयार नहीं है कि हम इसके बारे में सीरियसली बात करें.
But that we can't take. मतलब that's not a. I mean, it's a problem, the 5-year
Yes.
cycle. But उसको तो हम लोग नहीं छेड़ सकते ना. Like we can't have.
उसको छेड़ने की बात नहीं कर रहे. मैं तो डेमोक्रेसी को के बारे में बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, पर कोई पॉलिटिकल मैनिफेस्टो में ये बात क्यों नहीं आता है, ना कि कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन क्यों बात नहीं करती है. अब BWSSB ले, दे हैव नॉट रेज्ड द प्राइस ऑफ वाटर सिंस 2014, राइट? 2000, हाँ, उसके बाद प्राइस राइज हुआ ही नहीं है. दो an article says that every time the price of electricity goes up, they can raise the price of water, but they don't do it. They themselves don't know what the true cost of production of water is. हमारे घर, there are 1.1 million bills which reach every home, water bill. हर महीने हर घर में एक बिल आता है. वो बिल में आप कितना पैसा भरना है वो नंबर आ जाएगा, लेकिन उनको कितना पैसा लगा उस पानी को आपके पास पहुंचाने का या फिर स्वेज को कलेक्ट करके ट्रीट करने का, वो एक नंबर डाल देते. तो लोगों को कम से कम पता तो चलता कि इतना पैसा खर्च होता है और उनको क्या सब्सिडी मिल रही है. तो कम से कम एक नैरेटिव टू बिल्ड होता कि चलो इसके बारे में कुछ करना चाहिए, थोड़ा और ज़्यादा पैसा देंगे तो अच्छा सर्विस भी मिलेगा. So the increase in price has to be backed by an increase in service and quality of service, right? So if that compact can be reached in certain pockets, let's say the newer areas that are coming up, you try it out there as a model, then you see and you spread that word. That willingness is not there in any government thinking, political party thinking or institution.
सर मेरे को ये थोड़ा सा और समझाओ. कितनी गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं which are responsible for this? You're saying there are different things. ठीक है, पानी के लिए, that is one. Second is आपने बोला 38,000 crores का कुछ प्रोजेक्ट है for which is डेवलपमेंट के लिए. अगर वो इतना मिलता तो वेनिस बन जाता. बट have you made some plan somewhere कि यार कितना पैसा चाहिए बैंगलोर का ये प्रॉब्लम सॉर्ट करने के लिए?
10,000 करोड़.
ओके.
और उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा पैसा सूरज नेटवर्क में और सूरज ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट में जाता है कि उस क्वालिटी को इम्प्रूव कर दे.
और उससे सिर्फ बैंगलोर का फायदा नहीं होगा,
पूरे इर्द गिर्द डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स का फायदा होगा. सी रफली अबाउट 64,000 फार्मर्स विल बेनिफिट. 1.1 million acres will come into cultivation. This is the benefit with the water. The average citizen of Bangalore is only obsessed with his or her water and his or her lake at the most. They are not concerned about the overall system. We need to worry about the Cauvery. We need to make sure that the Cauvery flows correctly so that the forests of Cauvery are protected in Coorg, Hassan and every other place. And we need to worry about the farmer in Kolar and Chikballapur on whose produce we depend for food and vegetables. And the quality of food and vegetables. हम ही लोग कंप्लेन करते हैं कि जो वृषभावती का पानी जाता है उसमें से ये लोग नारियल उगा रहे हैं या फिर कुछ और तरकारी उगा रहे हैं जिसको हम खा के बीमार पड़ रहे हैं. यदि हम अच्छा नारियल पीना चाहते हैं या खाना चाहते हैं तो हमें वो गंदा पानी वहाँ नहीं भेजना चाहिए ना, और उनको साफ पानी दे देंगे तो क्यों गंदा पानी का इस्तेमाल करेंगे. तो ये हमारी सोच में बदलाव आना चाहिए.
सर मैं कावेरी पे भी आता हूँ. I'll go from Bangalore towards all of this. मेरे को बताओ कि गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स who is responsible for what, और सर उनकी प्रायोरिटी क्या है. अगर ये प्रायोरिटी नहीं है तो देखो एज अ सिटीजन आई विल बी ऑनेस्ट, हमें लगता है कि जब मैं सड़कों पे जाता हूँ बैंगलोर की कि ये क्या कर रहे हैं, बट आई एम श्योर कुछ तो कर रहे हैं. दे हैव देयर एजेंडास, दे हैव देयर प्रायोरिटीज. सुबह उठ के कोई तो उनसे पूछता होगा एक महीने में क्या काम किया है या whatever they're responsible for something. So what's happening in
Right. So let me list out all the institutions responsible for various forms of water. The Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board is responsible for the piped water that comes to your house and the piped sewage which is taken out from your house.
Okay.
That's it. The lakes are the responsibility of the Karnataka Town and Tank Conservation Development Authority, KTCDA, which is legally mandated to approve plans for the lakes, but the lakes themselves are owned by the BBMP. And some of the lakes are being developed by the BDA, right? And some of the trees in the lake are being planted by the forest department. I'm just letting you know how things are. The groundwater, once it gets into the ground, is with the groundwater authority, which currently is only monitoring it and telling us कि पानी ऊपर कितना जा रहा है, नीचे कितना गिर रहा है. That's all. That's the groundwater authority. So these are some of the institutions which are responsible. The moment the wastewater gets into our rivers, there's nobody in charge of it.
So you want to make more bodies. That is what you were suggesting.
No, so what I'm saying is that there needs to be an integration of all the forms of water with one institution. Make one institution responsible. It's called an Integrated Urban Water Management Authority. It could
It's
be
there, you're saying.
It's not there. We need to create that. We need to create that so that all forms of water are with one accountable authority, which also has the capacity to design and implement projects for it, right? So it has to be there. Or otherwise, there has to be a convergence plan which everybody agrees. Plus, we need a river basin institution which takes care of the health of the river basin in which our city is located, so that the river continues to flow with quality and quantity water. Like they have created the National Mission for Clean Ganga, we need the equivalent for the Cauvery and we need it for all the major rivers, which we don't have.
But are you saying that in silos, these all departments are doing their job? The problem is कि वो integrated approach नहीं.
हाँ, ये suboptimal हो जाता है.
तो उनकी priorities are very limited to what they do.
बिल्कुल, and they are short of monies to be able to dream and vision big and to be able to invest big. They're all broke. The minor irrigation department is broke. The BWSSB is broke. Broadly, the government is broke.
तो फिर पैसा कहाँ से आ रहा है?
Tax payer का पैसा जितना आ रहा है, debt लेते हैं, so we're running severely short of finances.
The next 5 to 10 years, there are many reports which come that metro cities of India are becoming unlivable. That's not just water.
Yeah.
That's a lot of civic amenity problems,
Correct.
right? Do you think that we are in the right direction, that this is not happening with Bangalore? Is Bangalore becoming unlivable in the next 5 to 10 years, or is there hope?
Given the current trajectory, it will become more unlivable. Will it be totally unlivable? No, because we Indians will survive anything. So it will become more unlivable. But given the right vision and the right kind of democratic framework that we need to put in place, which means decentralized democratic governance at ward level, at city level and at metropolitan level, if we are able to get that right, and we have to get our plans and visions right.
Sir, theory नहीं, practical होगा.
नहीं. देखिए, there was something called the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution of India passed in 1993. We're still not able to get a democratic mayor for Bangalore. We still have a bill for Bangalore which divides Bangalore up into 7 zones and still has bureaucracy in charge of all that. There's no elected responsible councillors, corporators or governors. So theory क्या है, practical क्या है? When a law has been passed constitutionally and you're still not able to roll it on the ground, I don't know what is...
You're talking about BBMP elections not happening.
Yes, BBMP elections होना चाहिए. 73rd, 74th Amendment, which is the Nagarpalika Act, should be put in place. There's also a demand for a Metropolitan Planning Committee, which should be in place. If that is done, which is the law, then we have hope. But if you don't do that, then there's no chance that we're going to improve. तो चलिए इससे थोड़ा कम से कम छोटे से सक्सेस के बारे में भी बात कर लेते कि कहाँ कुछ चीज़ें बहुत अच्छे से काम की हैं, right? What has let's say communities have done. So there's one particular community on Sarjapur Road.
Okay.
That community is on 36 acres, about 360 plots roughly, not connected to the Cauvery network. What they would have done is every plot would have drilled a borewell. The borewell would have gone 1,000 feet deep because that's the depth there. Each would have costed 4 lakh rupees. 4 lakh rupees. So do the maths, 360 into 4 lakhs is 14.4 crore rupees would have been invested in putting 360 straws into the same Coca-Cola bottle.
Yeah.
Everybody competing with the other to empty it. How do you reverse this? What they did was they said no private borewells. They banned it. They said we'll sink 3 straws, 3 borewells, community borewells, park area. Whatever water we get, we'll distribute it. We'll put a meter so that we know how much is each household consuming. Up to 20,000 liters, we'll charge you a particular rate. Even that is in slab. But beyond 20,000 liters per month, we'll charge you $120 a kiloliter. means that it's cheaper for you to get a tanker than to do this. But 360 of us will all invest in a recharge well to put all the rainwater into the ground. So now 360 straws putting water into the ground, 3 straws drawing it, and a demand cap on what you will draw through pricing, right? They got cash surplus. They took that cash, put it in a sewage treatment plant, a state-of-the-art sewage treatment plant, which they improved on what the builder had given them, and gave the treated wastewater free to every household for garden use and non-potable use. Freshwater demand came down. Now they have surplus for water. Their borewell is full of water, and 3 borewells give them enough for the whole community. And not a drop of sewage goes out. They've invested in solid waste collection, segregation, and recycling and composting. And so they're now the independent Republic of Rainbow Drive. Now, each community in Bangalore can do that and become self-sufficient for water. Apartments, if they get their sewage treatment plant right, and if they get the rainwater harvesting right, can broadly be independent of the city network. So we can do that, right? So it's possible to do it. Now let's get...
So you're telling me positive stories.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, Devanhalli town, right? Devanhalli town, which is next to the airport, struggling for water, 45,000 population, 110 deep borewells, out of which 36 are not working. They get saline water. TDS, total dissolved solids, more than 2,000, undrinkable. So they go to RO plants and pay 5 rupees for 20 liters. Right? That's $250 a kiloliter. What they do? So they clean up their local lake, which is called Kare, next to the fort, which is 5004. They make sure that all the rainwater comes to that. Treated wastewater from Bangalore goes to Bengaluru Lake and then comes to Kare in summertime when the water level is low. They cleaned up a well next to the lake, a dug well. They found that the earth filtered this water and made it really clean. There are fish and turtles swimming in that well. A state-of-the-art water treatment plant has been set up. It's supplying water to Devanhalli town, currently about 540,000 liters, progressively 1 million liters, at 1 rupee 54 paisa 1,000 liters. So by rejuvenating your local lake, your local well, and reusing wastewater, you can become self-sufficient at a town level, 45,000, and it will be cheaper for you.
When you say they, who's they?
So they is the Town Municipal Council of Devanhalli, supported by NGOs and Rotary and various funding agencies under CSR money. So they put in the money. It was not more than 80 lakh rupees. And with that, the transformation was there. An NGO called EFI cleaned up the lake. Like others, all pitched in, all helping the Town Municipal Council, getting their system right, and it became self-sufficient.
80 lakh rupees mein, and how much time did it take?
6 months.
So if there is a will and people come together, it can happen.
It can. So every one of the 186 lakes in Bangalore, if the community comes together with the help of the BBMP and make sure that it is clean and gets treated wastewater, which the BWS will fit in, then all the borewells in that surrounding area will be rejuvenated. So then the flats don't have to depend on tankers that much, right? All the open wells will be rejuvenated, and then there is self-sufficiency possibility. So even in this bleak scenario, there are possibilities of solutions. So we shouldn't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Do what you can individually, do what you can as a community, and do what you can with the state, and things will change for the better.
So tell me top 3 things as an individual. Community level, I understand.
Right.
And I also understand things are happening.
Correct.
Kahin na kahin cheezein ho rahi hain, which is very nice. As an individual, kya karo?
Teen cheezein. I'll tell you 3 things.
Okay.
1, be mindful user of water. Please realize that it's a scarce resource currently, and therefore shouldn't be extravagant and wasted, right? So make sure that you have water efficient taps, flushes, showers, and use it carefully and wisely. If you can, set up a rainwater harvesting system. It's not very difficult. Capture all the rain. 100 square meter roof area, like this house we are in, gets 1 lakh liters of rainwater annually. Don't allow it
in Bangalore.
In Bangalore, 1 lakh liters.
और कितने का लगेगा सर प्लांट?
So आपके पास सम टैंक होगा, आपके पास छत होगा, आपके पास डाउन पाइप होगा, आप 10,000 रुपया फिल्टर में खर्च कर दिए, तो you will get all the rainwater that you want to harvest, right? At best, if you want to spend on a recharge well, it will cost you 35,000 rupees, and you can fill it up for 50 years. So you'll be putting 50 lakhs into the ground. So second thing, do rainwater harvesting. Third, if you're in an apartment, go make sure that the STP that is there in your apartment functions well and that it's reused effectively. If you do these 3 things as an individual, you're making a difference. The next thing that you have to do is, as a community member, make sure that the lake nearest to your house, you go visit it and join a group of people to improve the condition of the lake. If you're able to get that lake ship shape and get treated wastewater into it during summer months, you yourself as a community will not face problems, right? So that's something that you need to do. The last thing that you need to do as a citizen is to demand that your institutions shape up and do the right thing for the city.
Sir, rainwater harvesting,
Hmm.
why is it not made mandatory?
It is mandatory. Since 2009, it's mandatory. Every house has to do rainwater harvesting.
House, individual house.
Every apartment, every institutional building, every individual house on a third.
India में कि कर्नाटक?
Bangalore में. It's a city level law.
Okay.
तो काफ़ी शहरों में आ गया है. बैंगलोर में तो आ गया है. चेन्नई में पहले आया. Chennai has more than 6 lakh rainwater harvesting buildings in the city. Bangalore is second with more than 2.5 lakh buildings doing rainwater harvesting.
But you're saying it's mandatory, then why is it only 2.5 lakh?
ये बात है ना कि our citizens should also rise up to the occasion and be responsible. If I get cheap water from the BWSSB, why should I do rainwater harvesting? 7 रुपए में मिल रहा है मुझे 1000 लीटर. 1 लाख लीटर भी बचा लिया साल का. 700 रुपए बचे. 700 रुपए क्या चीज़ है? Plus owners and renters, there's a challenge there. Plus space sometimes because you violate the bylaws.
So
if you
it's okay, I didn't know this. So it's a law for a house that I'm making now,
yes,
or it's a law for a house which
since
is
2009. Since 2009.
तो अगर ये बिल्डिंग 2011 में बनी है जहाँ हम
हाँ,
बैठे
तो it's compulsory and mandatory.
and the government can fine them.
They already are. So likely if you don't do rainwater harvesting, your water bill gets increased by 50% for 6 months. If you don't do it within 6 months, it becomes double as a penalty.
So they will be paying double.
If I haven't done rainwater harvesting, मैं building
Assume
में
it.
आके
Let's assume.
नहीं नहीं तो मैं बिल्डिंग में आके ओनर को क्यों मैं गाली दूं? पर that's the law. And there are many citizens who are willing to pay the fine but not do rainwater harvesting.
Is there a calculation if everyone does rainwater harvesting? What is the percentage of water requirement which will
The
go down?
city gets 3,000 million liters per day equivalent of rainwater in the 1,250 square kilometers. What we get from the Cauvery after the fifth stage is 2,275 milli. Gets more water than the Cauvery falling on the rooftop.
How much of it is practically possible to be harvested?
50% पकड़ लो.
Okay.
1,500 mld can be harvested, stored in our aquifers or stored in our lakes. 1,500 mld. That's why I tell you there's no shortage of water. There's enough and more water. Then there is 2,000 million liters per day of treated wastewater available. Minimum 2,000. It's more than that. पूरा जोड़ो 3,000, 2,275 और 2,000. There's enough and more for the whole population for 50 million.
ठीक है सर, थोड़ा अच्छा लगा सुन के. So which means that जिस दिन करना होगा
हाँ.
कर लेंगे. This is not we are not at a stage where say that we can't go back now. Whatever damage has happened, we are saying it's retrievable. Thames साफ हो गई थी, हम कावेरी भी कर लेंगे. या मतलब बैंगलोर को तो सुधार लेंगे, कावेरी पे मैं
So the thing is, the earlier we do it, the lesser the pain we go through. But definitely सुधारिए. हम मन बनाए तो सुधार सकते हैं और अभी के resources में सुधार सकते हैं, provided we get the financial instrumentalization right. If we do that correctly, there is no scarcity. So let's realize the real problem is money, budget and governance, not water.
सर अगर आपको वाटर मिनिस्टर बना दिया जाए तो क्या 3 चीजें करोगे आप?
रिजाइन करूंगा पहली बात. क्योंकि ये हमें लगता है कि मिनिस्टर के पास ज़्यादा पावर है, ठीक है, पर नहीं है. बट व्हाट वी नीड टू डू इज टू गेट द सिस्टम राइट, एंड दैट is not just being a minister, but saying that all manifestos should address the issue correctly in all political parties. And the citizen should be given a roadmap as to what she or he can expect to be done in the sector over the next 5 years, whichever parties contest. And they should give an annual report card to say कि क्या हो रहा है. मैं water minister होगा तो पहले जो काम करूँगा is to get a white paper and explain the real challenge before us. The second thing to do is to explain what it will cost to set the system right. And the third is what kind of a plan should be drawn up to get to that point, from point A to point B.
So you're saying कि because manifesto में नहीं है, because agenda ही नहीं है.
Agenda ही नहीं है. फालतू के assurances हैं. जो real problem है वो कोई समझाता ही नहीं है.
एक्चुअली में जब कर्नाटका में इलेक्शन हुए थे तो बैंगलोर की बात नहीं होती है. मतलब मैं जितना देखता हूँ.
बैंगलोर देखिए 28 एमएलए है हमारे पास. 224 वाले एमएलए में 28 ही है यहाँ पे. तो बैंगलोर thinks it has the power, but in terms of the MLAs, it's still a minority, right? And the unfortunate thing is that the other point of solution is a dam on the river Cauvery, which will drown 5,000 hectares of the Cauvery Wildlife Sanctuary, which is accepted by all political parties as the solution for Bangalore.
No, tell me more.
So they want to build a dam which will hold 70 odd TMC feet of water in a place called Mekedatu, which will actually drown about 5,000 hectares of the Cauvery Wildlife Sanctuary, the last remaining place where the mahseer fish is and where the river otter is. And but the elephants go there. At the cost of that ecological destruction, what we're being promised is that we will have enough water to last us for another 100 years.
And you're saying it's a
It's a,
disaster.
it,
सर हर डैम बनने से पहले ये होता है ना.
नहीं देखिए, if you're not grappling with the real problem and you say कि more supply will sort out a leaking pipe, a leaking system, that's not the solution, right? You have to fix all the pipes and then bring the water if at all you have to do that. But like I argued, there is no resource shortage of water. What then happens is if you promise make it that to, you can turn around and say हम तो promise किए, वो लोगों ने हमें permit नहीं किया, इसलिए नहीं बन रहा है और इसलिए आपके पास solution नहीं आ रहा है. ये नहीं बोलेंगे कि हम यहाँ सुधारना चाहिए था, वो नहीं कर रहे हैं हम, इसके कारण प्रॉब्लम है. सो इट बिकम्स डार्ट बोर्ड विच यू कैन थ्रो darts at and say that's the real reason why we have a crisis, and it's because of that political party or this political party.
So sir, what is driving you?
What is driving me? I don't know whether I should say it on a podcast, but Old Monk on Friday night.
तो फिर हमें Friday night को करनी चाहिए तू. I'm just saying that devoting so many years.
38 years.
So,
What drives you is the humongous possibilities of success. The kind of potential well-diggers show, women in NGOs show, town municipal council engineers show, fishermen. Like just as an example, जब हमने वो तालाब को साफ किया देवनहल्ली में, हमारे ग्रुप ने, the fishermen came and said, look, I grow fish here and I used to throw fish feed into it. That fish feed is all sorts of material. But now that I see that you are giving water to the town, I will stop cultivating fish here. I will go to the next lake. I'll make a loss of 3.5 lakh rupees. But because the cause is bigger than my livelihood, I'm happy to do it. And he said so willingly. We didn't ask him at all. He was observing ki kya ho raha hai kaam. And he came on his own and he did that. A well digger digs a well and strikes water. He immediately sends me a video on WhatsApp. अभी मैं जैसे आज भी खोलूंगा मेरा, अभी आधे घंटे में एक वीडियो आ जाएगा कहीं तो भी. Just सर पानी आ गया. And that happiness that they share, and then the water that they're going to recharge. And this is the capability that people have and communities have, and which can be triggered by you being faithful to the work you do and being able to tell the story of what you're doing so that they also become part of the caravan. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and throw stones on the caravan. It's a bit more difficult to feed the camels and give it water, but get it to the destination, right? So that's what gives you the kicks in life, apart from Om, is these incredible people that you come across, all across India, not here, anywhere and everywhere. जो उनका knowledge and the lived experience they have is amazing.
ठीक है सर, चलो अब बैंगलोर के बाहर चलते हैं.
हाँ चलिए.